The Hundred is one of the novels of the dystopian science fiction of the American writer Mallory Cass, also known as Cass Morgan, born in New York in 1984. She grew up in Brooklyn and then moved to England to study 19th century literature at Oxford University. Once back in the United States, she began working on the novels that would later lead her to success. In September 2013, she published the first of the 4 books, but 3 more years would pass before reaching the Italian public. The following novels were published in the following years, and they are called Day 21, Homecoming, and Rebellion. Before the publication of the first book, the US producer Jason Rothenberg began to take an interest in the television adaptation. Since March 2014, the TV series gave voice to the writer's novels. The show has 7 seasons, broadcast on the US channel The CW. They are now visible on Netflix. The novels are set 3 centuries after an apocalypse caused by a nuclear war that led to the extinction of the entire human race. The only humans to have survived, or so it was thought until the end of the first novel, are those who live in a space colony, called Herc in the TV adaptation and Colony in the novels, made by the union of the stations that once orbited the Earth. With the passing of time, however, the resources available on the Earth decrease. And that's why, since its creation, the council in charge of the colony takes extreme decisions to ensure the survival of the human race. Any crime is punished with the expulsion of the offender from the space station, a death sentence that is reserved only for the adults. Those who have not reached the age of majority yet remain in prison, waiting for their execution, which will take place on the day of their 18th birthday. However, little time remains to the colony's population, so the council decides to send 100 young prisoners to explore the Earth, to find out if one day it will be possible to return to what once was their home. The first novel has 36 chapters that tell the stories of the 4 protagonists, Clark, Bellamy, Wells, and Glass, 4 young inhabitants of the colony who alternate their present emotions and experiences with memories of the past. The book begins with the story of Clark Griffin, who recollects what her life was like before being imprisoned for covering up her parents, who years before had been forced by the Vice-Chancellor to conduct secret experiments on children to test if the population was ready to go to the Earth. However, Clark is brought back to reality when some girl tells her that she will be one of the 100 people who will go on an expedition to the Earth. While waiting to enter the ship, someone shoots Chancellor Jaw, who falls to the ground covered in blood in front of his son, Wells, sneaked into the group of 100 to follow Clark. The ship finally leaves for the unknown planet and manages to land on the west coast of what once was the United States. The landscape that the 100 see is amazing. They see the sunset for the first time, they hear the water and the wind moving through the leaves. But happiness doesn't last long. Many young people have died during the violent landing, some are seriously injured, and the food begins to run low. Used to live in an authoritarian regime, founded on rules and punishments, the 100 feel they are finally free and far away from the colony. However, one night the 100 wake up finding that a fire broke out, and they realize that they are not the only human beings on Earth, and that perhaps their stay on the planet is about to be threatened. Although the TV series deals with many of the events and characters described in the novel, there are still some differences. Clark's mother, who in the screen adaptation has a fundamental role in the development of the events until the 6th season, she only appears at the end of the book, because she was believed dead when she was executed for crimes against the ship. In the screen adaptation, moreover, characters and scenes were modified for a matter of time and taste for the audience. The character of Wells, Clark's former boyfriend and co-leader of the new colony on Earth, is present in the books until the end, while in the screen adaptation he is killed a few days after landing on planet Earth. Furthermore, in the television adaptation, the scenes alternate between stories narrated from the space and the Earth, while in the book the only character that tells what happens on the colony is Glass, who is not in the TV series. while the rest of the narrative is focused on the adventure of the young prisoners. Even though the books analyzed do not bring great innovations in terms of literature, these novels fascinated those interested in dystopian fiction. Even if at first glance the plot seems to be intended for young adolescents, both because the protagonists have more or less that age, both because there are romantic events between the characters, if analyzed more specifically, the tetralogy of the Hundred contains several points of reflection. The imaginary future described by the author seems to be more and more similar to what awaits us, with the increase of wars and tensions between world powers. Another important aspect is the struggle for survival. Both on the colony in space and in the new one created on Earth, the characters are constantly fighting to ensure that the human species continues to live. From the extreme decisions of the Council to the young prisoners that try to find food and safe places to find refuge, the protagonists of the Hundred are always forced to choose in order to allow the progress of humanity. Another aspect that we can compare with reality is the conquest of the most civilized population over the primitive ones. In the screen adaptation, when those who remain on the colony reach the Earth, wars and clashes begin with inhabitants of the planet, who are later exterminated by the advanced weapons and technology of the former inhabitants of the Ark. Another important feature in the stories is the behavior of the young people sent to Earth, which reflects the human instinctive behavior. The fact that the young prisoners, as soon as they land on Earth, do what they were never allowed to do in space, shows how once free from rules, in most cases people behave without caring about the others, and that it's crucial to establish certain rules in order to create a society. And this is why the leaders Bellamy and Clark, who at the end of the books end up getting married, despite their different vision of things, try to create order among the Hundred, aware that only with rules they can survive on that unknown planet. If on Earth the young prisoners try to survive, on the Ark the situation gets worse. Aware that there is not enough time for the colony and its population to leave, the Council must take a difficult decision. To protect the Ark for a few more months, it is necessary to halt the population, so there will be enough oxygen and food. A difficult choice between what's right or wrong, whether to sacrifice a part to allow others to continue living. A hard ethical choice that also concerns our reality. I've chosen to analyze this novel because I've always been fascinated by dystopic fictions, which describe an imaginary reality about the future of the world and humanity. The Hundred is a captivating plot, full of twists. I've read the books, watched the 7 seasons of all the TV series several times, and each time I'm still impressed by how many characteristics described in the plot are similar to our reality. Although accentuated by an atmosphere of fear, the emotions of the protagonists are similar to ours: the desire to emerge within a group, the ability to make difficult decisions, and the feeling of fear for something new. Even if similar, I can say that I prefer the screen adaptation. The story is developed in a more compelling way, and is given voice to more characters that in the book seem to be secondary. I think it's a very interesting tetralogy, both because it shows how human behaves when faced with extreme cases, and both because the imaginary reality narrated in the novels is a point of reflection on how we should treat our planet, taking care of it without exploiting its resources. The imaginary character of the Hundred, after centuries of radiation invading their home, were lucky enough to return to planet Earth. But maybe if the same thing would happen to our planet today, we will not be so lucky in the future.